Across Australia's vast open country, cattle farming happens on a scale that can be hard to imagine. Large herds spend much of their lives surrounded by open pasture, while modern equipment and carefully managed feeding systems help farmers handle thousands of animals efficiently. But raising beef cattle at this scale takes more than land and grass. From pasture management and daily care to feeding, technology and processing, every stage plays a role in bringing Australian beef from the farm to the market. Today, we're taking a closer look at how this system works. For many Australian cattle, life begins out on the open pasture, where they have plenty of room to move, graze, and interact naturally with the landscape around them. Instead of spending all their time in confined spaces, the cattle can walk freely across large grazing areas while feeding on the grass available throughout the property. This outdoor system gives the animals regular exercise and allows farmers to make use of the natural pasture as an important source of feed. In the original farming model, grass-fed cattle are also associated with desirable meat quality, including flavour and nutritional value. And because pasture provides part of the animal's diet, farmers can reduce their dependence on other feed sources. But managing cattle outdoors comes with its own challenges. Across such large areas, animals can be injured, become sick, wander away from the herd, or encounter wildlife. That means open-range cattle farming still requires regular monitoring and experienced management. For Australian farmers, the goal is to take advantage of the space and natural grazing available while keeping the herd healthy, well-fed, and under control. It's a farming system built around the land itself, and for these cattle, that land provides both their living space and much of the food they need to grow. Before a herd can thrive, farmers need the right environment to support it. That starts with enough pasture for the cattle to graze and enough open space for them to move freely. Building a healthy herd also means choosing quality cattle from reliable sources. But once the animals arrive, the work is far from over. Vaccinations help protect the herd from infectious diseases, while regular health checks allow farmers to catch potential problems before they become serious. Food and water are just as important. Even when cattle spend much of their time grazing, farmers still need to make sure the herd has reliable access to the nutrition and clean water it needs every day. From there, it's a matter of consistent care and close observation as the cattle continue to grow. This process can take many months, with farmers monitoring the herd until the animals reach the appropriate age and weight for beef production. On a large Australian cattle operation, managing the herd isn't one single job. It's a daily routine built around pasture, nutrition, health, and knowing exactly what the cattle need at every stage of growth. For many Australian beef cattle, life on open pasture is only part of the journey. Modern beef farming can combine natural grazing with a more controlled period of feeding, where cattle are brought together and managed more closely as they approach their target weight. This gives farmers greater control over nutrition and allows them to monitor how the animals are growing. In these larger feeding operations, the goal is efficiency, but also consistency. Feed can be carefully managed to support steady weight gain, helping cattle reach the size needed for beef production in a more predictable way. With thousands of animals to care for, even small improvements in feeding can make a major difference across the entire herd. This more concentrated system also makes it easier to monitor cattle, manage resources, and reduce unnecessary feed waste. By combining the advantages of open grazing with controlled feeding, Australian farmers can manage cattle through different stages of production while working toward consistent beef quality. It is this combination of traditional grazing and modern management that has become an important part of large-scale beef farming in Australia. Managing a large herd takes more than experience alone. On modern cattle operations, technology has become an important part of the daily routine. GPS tracking systems can help farmers keep track of cattle across large areas and better understand how the herd is moving. Health monitoring systems provide another layer of oversight, helping farmers identify potential problems earlier and respond when an animal needs attention. Feeding is becoming more efficient as well. Automated systems and specialized equipment can deliver feed more consistently, making it easier to manage large numbers of cattle while reducing unnecessary waste. And at this scale, waste management matters too. With so many animals concentrated in one operation, manure has to be managed carefully to reduce its impact on the surrounding soil and water. Together, these technologies give farmers greater control over the herd, the feed, and the resources required to run the operation. The cattle may still spend part of their lives grazing on open land, but behind the scenes, modern technology is changing the way large-scale beef farming works in Australia. On a cattle operation this large, feeding the herd is a massive job of its own. Thousands of animals need reliable access to feed every day, and moving that much food by hand simply isn't an option. Instead, specialized trucks and feeding equipment do much of the heavy work. Feed is prepared in large quantities before being loaded into trucks and delivered throughout the feeding areas. As the truck moves slowly alongside the cattle, it distributes a steady amount of feed directly into the troughs, allowing large sections of the herd to be fed quickly and efficiently. For farmers, this equipment isn't just about saving time, it also makes the feeding process easier to manage when thousands of cattle depend on the same daily routine. What once required enormous amounts of manual labor can now be handled with specialized machinery and a much smaller workforce. And when you're feeding cattle at this scale, efficiency matters. Every load of feed, every trip through the feedlot, and every feeding cycle becomes part of a carefully managed system designed to keep the entire herd growing. Once the cattle reach the appropriate age and weight, the next stage of the journey begins. Moving a large herd from the farm requires specialized livestock trucks designed to transport the animals to processing facilities. Once they arrive, the operation shifts from cattle farming to beef production, with each stage organized as part of a larger processing line. The cattle move through a series of carefully controlled steps as workers prepare the carcasses for further processing. The hide and internal organs are removed before the beef moves on to cutting and inspection. From there, skilled workers separate the carcass into different cuts, including steaks, lean cuts, and beef that can be used for ground meat. At this scale, the process depends on both experienced workers and specialized equipment to keep production moving efficiently. Quality checks are carried out along the way before the finished cuts reach the packaging area. The beef is then packed, labeled with the necessary product information, and in many cases, vacuum sealed to help protect it during storage and distribution. From there, the packaged beef is ready to leave the facility and continue on to stores, supermarkets, and other markets. What began with cattle grazing across open Australian pasture has now moved through an entirely different system, one built around processing, quality control, packaging, and distribution. But the journey doesn't end with beef. The hide is another valuable part of the animal, and instead of going to waste, it can be sent to specialized facilities for further processing. There, the hides are cleaned, sorted, and treated through a series of steps that transform the raw material into usable leather. Specialized machines help remove unwanted material, while additional treatments improve the leather's strength, flexibility, and durability. After drying and finishing, each piece is inspected before leaving the facility. From there, the finished leather can become everything from shoes and bags to clothing, furniture, and automotive interiors. It's another side of the cattle industry that most consumers rarely see, and one that extends the production chain far beyond the beef itself. From vast open pastures to modern feedlots and processing facilities, beef production in Australia is built around an enormous system of land, animals, people, and technology. Behind every cut of beef is a journey that begins long before it ever reaches the store. And this is just one part of the world of large-scale farming. Thanks for watching Lam-farmer. If you'd like to see how farmers around the world raise thousands of animals every day, subscribe and join us for the next journey.